Today's podcast is brought to you by the Belter Companies, Navigator Group Purchasing, and eMenu Choice Point of Sale. Welcome to Tips from Trestle. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and leadership. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. As a 25-year veteran of the hospitality industry, I've focused my work on creating exceptional experiences for the customers we serve. My goal for this podcast? Educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living to bring food and hospitality to the front of mind in our industry. Let's bring the innovative and passionate spirit of hospitality to everything that we do, for the residents, families, guests, and employees we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. Prior to recruiting and working at Full Spectrum, Katie started her journey with seniors and long-term care at the age of 12, calling bingo for a local non-profit senior living community. With a grandfather diagnosed with Alzheimer's and communities not being able to care for his behaviors, Katie set out to earn a degree in health administration and gerontology. Her mission was to change the lives of seniors and family members she had the privilege of interacting with. She spent 10 years in the senior living industry as a regional sales director and sales director for senior living operators on the West Coast. After traveling and being heavily involved in her region's sales and marketing efforts, Katie joined an independent and assisted living community working in resident relations and operations. It was there that she became Forbes Customer Service Certified, expanding and providing exceptional customer service to residents and family members of the community. After almost a decade in sales for senior living, she had a conversation with Max, Full Spectrum CEO, and decided to join the team at Full Spectrum, recruiting quality candidates. Now, Katie is managing partner overseeing the senior living practice on the West Coast, recruiting and retained searches for executive leadership roles. Katie, thanks for joining me today on Tips from Trestle.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
So I want you to kind of tell us a little bit more about your story. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who kind of have found senior living, but 12 years old, that's way earlier than most of us.
I know. My parents thought I was crazy, but from that first bingo call, wow, it hit me. It was like, this is where I'm meant to be, in senior living.
And so, worked in senior living, you did sales and marketing, you got into operations, but then you kind of went over to doing recruitment. What was that transition like?
It was actually a really interesting time in my life. I was working senior living for so long and had my son, Lyle, and he was about 9 months old, and I just wasn't around. And it was hard for me, and I loved my career. I still do love my career, but wanted to be a little bit more present in his life and in my family's life. And so I actually took a step back. I resigned and started working at a preschool. Then COVID happened, had another baby. And then that's when Max got in touch with me, was right after my second was born. And it's been wonderful ever since. And I'm really grateful that actually he reached out to me on LinkedIn and we took this leap of faith, really.
Yeah. Well, and when we connected, one of the reasons I wanted to visit with you is recruitment. I mean, we're talking about hiring and staffing and labor and all of those things right now in the industry. And so your perspective as a recruiter, I think, is going to be something that our listeners are going to be interested to know more about. And so the first thing I would be curious about is, how can individuals use a recruiter for looking for their next position?
Sure. Yeah. And I love this question because we get reached out to a lot, from candidates that are confidentially and passively maybe looking for their next opportunity. And, we love working with them to see where we can find a really great fit. It is always a wonderful conversation to have with those types of candidates in what they're currently doing now and maybe what their current company isn't offering them that they would be interested in moving, to for another operator to start doing that. And it is a very detailed, in-depth conversation about, maybe some pain points, maybe some culture conversations, or, I really want autonomy, or I really want to relocate, or, I've been doing this for so long and I just kind of feel like I'm at my max, career stage. The next person isn't going to leave anytime soon or retire anytime soon. So I really want more growth. And those kinds of conversations are probably my favorite, because I really do love supporting individuals and professionals in growing within their career. And it's always just such a wonderful, conversation to have, and then be able to support them in maybe interviewing with their dream employer.
So one of the things as we were talking about kind of before we got on here was how your recruiting firm might be different than other recruiting firms. You guys are a retained firm. And so I think our listeners probably would need some clarification on how that works, what that looks like, and how you guys approach your business and how you support clients.
Sure. So Full Spectrum is a highly niched recruiting firm. We have 3 different divisions that we recruit in: senior living, skilled nursing, and home health and hospice. And we are a dedicated retained search firm. So what that means for our clients or future clients is when you are asking us to work on a specific job, let's just call it a regional director of operations, right? For California and Oregon, we'll say that. Okay. So when we're working that type of job for our client, it is a dedicated effort. It is a dedicated sourcing department from our team. It is a dedicated recruiter with recruiting hours dedicated solely to their job. And it is a lot of high level communication, a lot of detail that goes into it. We are really diving in with our clients about their current needs, their current pain points, where they need the most support, what they're really looking for in that individual to, continue to grow their company. And we're getting to know also, if it's a regional director of ops, we're getting to know, what does their community portfolio look like? How many communities are they overseeing? Tell us the nitty gritty on those communities. We want to know really everything. Usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour to really dive through and get that many details. Yeah. And then, when we go to coach the recruiter on how we're recruiting on it, there's a whole procedure that goes into it from our team on the back end when it comes to sourcing candidates and, recruiting calls and how we're effectively going to be the most efficient and effective for our client and this current need that they have. We do weekly touch points with our clients. They get a client portal. So it is a lot of upfront communication to them. For us, they are essentially paying us for a service, and for us, we want to be able to give them the best service possible for the position that they're having trouble filling or that they need filled rather quickly.
Yeah. And so I think about it from the other side, right? So as maybe as an individual who is looking for a new position, you guys have the criteria, you have the kind of the nuts and bolts of what the position is looking for, the skill sets. And so when an individual approaches you about a position, how does that look from their perspective? What do they need to have? How can they be best prepared for that conversation with you as the recruiter?
Sure. So, sometimes specific individuals might not work out for our opportunity, whether it be from our eyes or maybe their eyes, right? Maybe it's not the right company for them, or maybe it's too much travel that they're willing to do right now, or whatever that might look like, or they're not willing to relocate. Those kinds of things do come up and do happen. And when it's, Katie, this is not a position for me at this time, but I want to talk about potentially what other positions there might be that opportunity for me. And again, that goes back to the conversation we have with that specific candidate of what are you looking for? What excites you about having, your next adventure, your next journey within a new operator? And it's really diving in and getting a lot of detail about what that might look like for that individual.
So it's fair to say that you do work both sides of the spectrum of recruiter for a company and pulling in individuals. So you kind of have information on an individual and say, oh, well, maybe this regional operations job that you were talking about isn't available, but maybe you're a better fit for this executive director role with that same company. And that gives you the opportunity to grow. And so
Yes.
I'm curious what that kind of looks like and how you guys manage that.
Yeah. So, there are times where there could be an executive director that really sees fit that their next opportunity is with an RDO position or, maybe an ops specialist position. In that case, it's really diving into a lot of detail about, what they've been doing the past 10, 15, 20 years as an executive director. And do we see it working for them to maybe take that next step as an RDO or an ops specialist? So it's a very detail-oriented approach, I would say, to those individuals, right, that are looking for that career growth for the next step and how we talk about it. We're a very transparent team. We say it how it is. We have very transparent conversations with our candidates about really what they're looking for, because, we do want to change their life for the better.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible experience. And we love working with our candidates and our clients on that.
Today, I want to tell you about one of Trestle's senior living partners, Belter. Belter is a food service design, equipment, and supply company that has been providing expert guidance to the food and beverage industry for nearly a century. A strategic partner to the most successful food service operations in the country, Belter provides support in kitchen and bar design, equipment procurement and install, and supplies. Their team of senior living food service experts have experience across the continuum of care. From independent living to skilled nursing and CCRCs, Belter specializes in right-sizing new facilities, modernizing remodels, and providing the right food service equipment and supplies. At Belter, they are committed to creating memorable experiences for their customers and their guests. With their top-notch team and a global network of quality supplier partners, their customer-focused approach is built on a foundation of collaboration and decades of industry experience. So thank you for considering Belter for all of your food service needs. Yeah, I think about some of my experiences working with recruiters, and for me, it was a mixed bag. I had some that were really great and others that weren't very clear. I think I love what you're saying about it's got to be a lot of detail put into not just understanding the role, but understanding the client or the candidates that you're talking to about the role. And I think that's such an important thing. And so one question that kind of makes me want to ask and think about is, what are you guys looking for somebody that's moving into this leadership role, right? You talked about having an executive director and evaluating them. So what kind of qualities do you have like a list of them? Is it position specific, or how do you guys approach that?
I love that question. So all of our positions that we recruit for, it is very position specific. I'm very proud of the training that we do for our recruiters, and, shout out to really Gaston and Max for creating this full training program. And, we teach our recruiters, some of our recruiters do come from senior living. So they do have that background, which is phenomenal when it comes to recruiting. They know what they're, working with and talking about when they're talking to candidates and things. So for our whole team, we actually have toured senior living communities so that they can understand really a day in the life of a senior living community.
That's crazy.
And
That's good.
yeah, it was really fun. And the team itself, for the training when it comes to, calling and recruiting on these positions for executive director or, RDO or whatever it might be, they have a list of really big questions that they need to talk about with the candidate to get a really good understanding of, is this our right candidate for this position? And then on top of that, we also, I get on the phone with those candidates if there's any kind of maybe gray areas where we need to dive in a little bit more or talk more about it, or, we just kind of support our recruiters in making sure those leadership qualities really match up with what the client is looking for. And, a lot of times there might be specific criteria, right? Like 3 to 5 years experience as an executive director. must be licensed, those kinds of things. And so, of course, we take all of that into account when talking to our clients to understand. But if there's a really dynamic ED that is maybe a little bit greener, but we can also tangibly make sure and say, this makes sense to us as the recruiters of why this would be a great fit for our client, then we, go ahead and we send it through. But it really needs to make sense on all parties, right? The candidate, ourselves, and the client, that and the reasons why we're, pushing this one through.
One of the things I always think about is finding people from outside of the industry, right? I'm a proponent of, if you're moving into an executive director role, I think you can find people who can take on that job who don't necessarily have all the senior living experience. I think sometimes we rely on that. Oh, well, they've got 20 years in the industry. Well, they've built up a lot of bad habits sometimes as well. And finding somebody who can bring the right personality, the right set of leadership and management skills from the outside, say like from the hotel or a restaurant perspective, I think there's a huge opportunity for that. And so I'm curious as to how you guys approach those candidates that might come from more non-traditional industries looking to get into senior living.
Yeah, I love that question. So where we mainly recruit would be in industry. Kind of think of us as recruiter headhunters, essentially. We are first talking to people with in-industry experience, and then we move on to maybe skilled nursing experience or home health and hospice experience. We kind of go through all of our avenues, if you will. Right. And then we'll kind of go into outside market. It's also part of the intake conversation we have with our client of, do you want somebody from the outside world? And I would say probably 8 times out of 10, it's no. Let's see what we can find in industry first. Yeah. And I think that is a little bit of that, plug and play kind of mentality, especially for executive directors where they need to be licensed and, having that experience at least under their belt of being licensed is pretty critical for some of these communities. And where we see a lot of people coming from outside of the industry would be in sales and marketing and then nursing. So
really nursing.
Yeah. So a lot of times, actually a few of the most recent RNs that we've moved forward and have been hired by our clients came from either hospital unit managers where they have managed a team before. They don't want to be in the hospital anymore and they want to be in senior living, those kinds of people. And then for sales and marketing, actually from hospitality that are coming in, or maybe they were a real estate agent or property manager was another one. So very interesting backgrounds there and also very interesting takes on the industry and what to bring into it, that different strategy and thought and ideas, which I find incredibly exciting as we move forward in senior living. So
for sure. I definitely think we need more of that. It's funny. I was talking to a sales and marketing consultant about the idea of getting hospitality sales professionals, and one of the things when you think about those type of industries, it's more transactional than relational. And obviously senior living is very much about relationships. And so do you guys have a lot of conversations with clients about that aspect of like a sales director or an executive director who's going to be very focused on sales and like a recovery standpoint? How did that look when you're having those conversations?
Yeah, I would say, for sales and marketing, at least, of course, it's a very emotional kind of sale, right?
Right.
I did it for 10 years and it was a roller coaster, I will tell you. But also you need to be a closer and you need to be able to effectively nudge the process forward and move it forward. And those folks that come from hospitality or different avenues of sales, right? They are used to really closing the gap and pushing it forward. I think where, when it comes to at least our clients, when we talk about candidates coming from outside the industry and what that might look like, it is a little bit more of extensive conversation, I would say, between themselves, the candidate and who they're interviewing with, to really make sure it is a good fit. Some of our clients do DISC assessments or personality indexes to kind of really get to understand an individual and how they work in a team and all of those kinds of things, leadership skills. So I would say, we've seen it come and we've seen it be very successful, especially through COVID, when the hospitality industry, unfortunately, wasn't really doing so great. A lot of people came into senior living and are still in senior living today, which is incredible. And I'm glad that they're here.
No, I love it. That's kind of my story, right? Being in hospitality and then transitioning. And so I think we need more of that kind of individual. And so one thing, I know you guys focus on like executive director at roles and hires. So like that community leader and then the regional and corporate position. So when you're looking at like an executive director versus maybe like a regional director of operations or some sort of regional role, what is the difference from your perspective on how you approach that, the conversations you have with your clients? What does that look like?
Sure. So when filling a community leader position, executive director, we're really getting to know the community itself. For us, there is the community culture, right? How that community runs its team, how the tenureship of that team and, all of that good stuff, the resident profile, census, all of that good stuff is very different than also the company corporate culture, right? Yeah. So, and it's not wildly different, but there is a difference, there is a difference.
Right.
For the corporate roles, we're really talking to the hiring managers, the support team members that would be maybe underneath them if there's any specialists or, other RDOs or regional sales folks underneath them. We really want to talk to all of those people and really understand how they are personality wise, what they look like, what they look for in a partner for this position. And really getting to know the company culture when it comes to, not just the policies of travel, right? But really understanding how often do you all meet together as a team? Is it quarterly? Do you fly into corporate once a year? What does that look like? And so for us, at least, it really is that constant conversation with our clients about what exactly they're looking for. And then also really understanding day in and day out how their companies are functioning from a culture standpoint and getting pretty honest with each other.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Do you find that their skill sets have to be dramatically different when you look at a community leader versus a regional role? Or is it more that like understanding the closer knit community culture versus maybe a little bit bigger of the understanding of the corporate culture when you're looking at these positions?
I'd say yes and no. Community leaders, right? I mean, essentially, most executive directors are completely autonomous in their position. They are really focusing on the entire operation for what is possibly a multi-million-dollar, corporation, this building. They're responsible for the team members there and growing their team members and also financially, revenue and expense management, all of that good stuff. There is that same level of, I would say experience needed to be a regional director of operations where they've had to have experience doing that times 10, right? And coaching their executive directors to continue to level up and grow their teams and grow their communities. So I would say it's pretty much same skill set. It's just, can you do it for potentially a portfolio of 10 to 15 communities kind of deal?
Yeah. I can. What do you think? I think about that executive director moving into that role because I've experienced that from the food service side of things. When you're looking at those individuals, what are the things that you have seen that maybe are I don't want to say red flags, that seems like a negative, but the blind spots that maybe you guys have found over time for someone who maybe on paper looks like they're ready, but aren't quite there yet. So what were some of the areas, I guess, that candidates can prepare themselves for if they want to move into that regional role?
Largest full-service GPO that exclusively focuses on the senior living community. And what that means is we provide products and services that help our members provide a great environment for their residents, such as like MRO, hospitality equipment, food, business products, as well as technology solutions. We actually surround our members with a level of support unmatched in the industry.
Sure. I would say, well, first, I'd like to say that, when I was a sales director, I knew I didn't just want to be a sales director at a community. I knew I wanted to be a regional and continue to, keep going.
Right.
I made that very top of mind, probably entirely too much and too frequently to my VP of sales and marketing, Carrie. And I kept telling her, Carrie, I want the next step. I want the next step. Let me prove to you, give me more responsibility or whatever that might look like. So then it was sales specialist. And then I'm like, okay, now I want regional. It's been 6 months. It's time, So, just constantly keeping it top of mind for her of, I want this career growth. Put this on me because I want these added responsibilities. And I think for community leaders, if they do want that, if they do want to maybe be an ops specialist where they're supporting other new executive directors, or they're going to their they're training the new EDs, but then also maybe filling in for a community that doesn't currently have an ED, those kinds of things. If they're constantly keeping that top of mind with their superior, their leader, right? Of I want more, and here's how I can show you I want more. I think that is possibly the best way for one of those candidates to kind of quickly propel into one of those roles. If you keep your needs, wants, and desires known with your mentor, more than likely they're going to start using you to exercise that skill. And there's been multiple times where I've had conversations with a lot of different senior living operators about what their career growth looks like and how quickly can you grow. And, there's ED and training programs. There are also then, career lattice programs that I've talked about previously where you really can jump forward to gain more experience, but it is on you as an individual to make that known, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I think that want need kind of way you described it makes perfect sense. I know that's kind of the way I approach it. I was always like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your next 5 years look like? Well, I want your position. I want to be in your spot, right? And so it makes a lot of sense. Do you see a lot of like executive directors or positions of leadership at the community level transitioning in and out of different departments? Like say, we talked about the hospitality people coming into senior living. Do you see executive directors moving into, say, like regional sales roles or regional wellness roles? And how does that transition typically work? Is that kind of driven by the client, or is it just because they have a unique background, or what have you seen with that?
I'd say both, unique background, right? Could be an RN that has always been in operations, but wants to support more clinically with their communities. So I've seen it go both ways when it comes to, those types of individuals for, for our clients now, when, they have an internal person that has expressed interest in sales and marketing, and maybe they've always done operations, it's just, operations to me is whole encompassing, right? When you're in operations, you need to know your sales and marketing. You have to, otherwise you can't control the revenue coming in and, expenses and all those good things. So I have seen a lot of either regional sales directors then become RDOs or VP of O's, or, flip the other way too. That one to me feels very interchangeable. The only one would be probably clinical. You kind of need to have a license for that. So there's that.
No, that all makes sense. So we're right on time, Katie. So was there anything else that we didn't get to that you think is important for our listeners to know when it comes to working with a recruiter or a recruiting firm that maybe we need to cover?
Yeah, I think for client wise, understanding the model, right, of how there's a lot of different recruiting firms out there and they're all fabulous and absolutely wonderful to work with. And it's just deciding which one works best with you at that time and what you currently need. On the candidate side, for us at Full Spectrum, even if you read our bios, it's all of us. And actually last week just gave an offer to a candidate and I'm like in tears on the phone with her because I'm just so happy for her and so over the moon for her that she really found this dream position and, she's going to do amazing. And I just know she is. And it's a very rewarding experience to be able to support someone in developing and growing professionally. I thought, senior living for me and working with residents and stuff has always been a dream come true. And I have been obviously missing working directly with the residents, considering I'm now working on the professional side.
Yeah.
But for me, it's that now that person going and working for this company is getting to touch the lives of so many other residents and family members. And I'm just so proud to be part of that. We are so proud to be part of that kind of career growth and that kind of, placement where we can see, wow, this is going to be incredible for that company and we can't wait to watch it grow kind of deal. So
yeah, it's definitely a unique lens that I am learning as well, right? Like I don't have that impact anymore, but it's finding the people or the processes and making that impact for an organization. So
yeah.
So, well, Katie, I've appreciated having you on. This has been a great conversation. How can people contact you, learn more about Full Spectrum, maybe see if you've got a role that they can talk to you about? Like, give us all of those details.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm active on LinkedIn, and I think you said you were going to put it in the
yes,
the
I'll put all this in the
perfect.
show notes.
Yeah, perfect. So active on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can always email me. My email is actually in my banner on my LinkedIn too, even in the contact info, my phone number. And then through our website, you can always contact us through our website and through our social medias there with LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. Yeah, call us.
Just go out and find them if you're looking for that perfect role.
Full Spectrum Search Group.
Full Spectrum Search Group. Perfect. Well, Katie, thanks so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking time, and we will talk with you again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Aaron.
So there you have it, another one in the books. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. Please follow, like, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Twitter at Tips from Trestle. You can also learn more about the work I do by following me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And be sure to check out Trestle Hospitality Concepts at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.